Hi, I'm Britt Myers, today's host of the Lasting Mission podcast. And today we're going to take a deeper dive into how we can better support veterans and military families. And I can think of no better person to talk about that topic than the executive director of Chive Charities, Brian Mercedes, whose organization does it every single week. So thanks so much for joining us, Brian. We're so glad to have you.
Hi, Britt. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, so for people who might not be familiar with Chive Charities, can you give us a quick overview of the organization, who you are, what you do, and how you make an impact?
Yeah, so I'm Brian Mercedes. I am the executive director of Chive Charities. We've been around since 2012, mainly exist to support the orphan causes, the forgotten causes, as we like to refer to them. What we do is we fill in the gaps where other resources fall short, whether that be insurance companies, the VA system, or other charities. What we try to do is provide life-giving and life-changing support to veterans, military families, first responders, and individuals with the rarest of medical conditions.
Awesome. And we're going to take a deeper dive into those causes and what that support looks like. But going back a decade or more into those early days of Chive Charities, I just think it's so unique how the organization kind of came up out of this community grassroots movement. So I'd love to hear more about that, about how Chive Charities became what it is today.
Yeah, so we are connected to a media website called The Chive, and that got founded back in 2008. And that community started to grow kind of organically. And if you think of The Chive, it was, back in the early days, just a lot of funny photos, memes, videos, and things like that. You could go to one place to get all of your entertainment needs. And that was back before Instagram and Facebook kind of fulfilled those needs. So the landscape today looks a little bit different, but there was a community that started to comment, and then they started to support each other. And then we realized that that community not only was positive and supportive of each other, but we came to realize that when people started to ask for help, that community would answer the call time and time again, to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars raised in a matter of days. So from there, we realized that, if we've got this amazing community that's so supportive and powerful, why don't we direct that good and that power towards the gaps that need to be filled? And that's where we looked at those cause categories, and we looked at the community at large, and we realized that veterans and active military were a big part of that community. First responders were a big part of that community. And then we also looked at, these stories that we would read from people with the rarest medical illnesses, things that, in some cases, there was no book to follow. There's no script to follow. And so we wanted to help write those stories for those recipients and use our megaphone and help people in a real way.
Oh, it's so cool how that just came out of a group of amazing, kind-hearted people who just saw this need and wanted to do more, and that became a bigger organization, a bigger impact, because it could have just stopped there. It could have stopped with one kind of GoFundMe. Of course, this was before GoFundMe, but one crowdsource campaign. But it's really become a movement that's endured and says a lot about the community and the people that the organization supports. And I love that you were talking about, veterans and military families specifically. Obviously, that's a cause that matters a lot to Mission Roll Call. And before I knew of the Chive or Chive Charities, I knew of Taylor Morris. I
Yeah.
would love for you to share kind of his story, because that really catapulted this movement into otherworldly proportions.
Yeah, prior to Taylor Morris, which he was an EOD tech, that he was in the Kandahar province of Afghanistan, and kind of clearing the way, doing what those selfless and fearless individuals do, looking for IEDs. And he actually triggered an IED, which blew him off the ground. He saw his own limbs fly off. I believe he, at the time, when he landed on his back, he was still conscious and was yelling at his comrades to, hey, don't come get me. We got to clear the area, bleeding to death. Of course, looking out for others. It's a theme that we hear in all the stories about our veterans and militaries, individuals. And, he got he got transported to Germany, then got transported back to Walter Reed. We got connected to him, and we were talking about that big community that supports us. And we received several people sending us his story, people that were friends with him, even served with him. Like, you have to take a look into this guy. And we got connected with him, called him up, and he's an Army EOD tech, and they were kind of taking care of his medical needs at that time. But when you don't know what the future looks like, when I think at the time he was the third or fourth person to survive the quad amputee surgery, you don't really know what the future is. And his incredible girlfriend at that time was with him this entire time. They ended up getting married, but we were just like, this is an incredible story. We want to tell it. By the way, as an afterthought, we said, hey, is there anything that you need? He's like, Army's taking care of me, but my girlfriend, Danielle, at the time, they had always had dreams of living on a lake. They're from Iowa. And so we were like, you know what? Let's raise, I don't know, $25,000, maybe $50,000 to get a down payment on a lake cottage for you. Lo and behold, John Resig writes a story about Taylor Morris, links to his, GoFundMe, I don't think was a thing at that time. I think we just linked to his PayPal. And we get, a call 20 minutes into this campaign, like, I think something's broken. Like, there's already $25,000 in my account. What is going on? And we raised 10 times that, $250,000 within 48 hours for Taylor Morris. So it was, hey, let's not only put a down payment in, let's just build the whole thing. And kind of springboarded him into starting his own charity for, he helps out a lot with prosthetics and 3D printing and things like that. And so, that story and that donation and that goodwill has kind of created this ripple effect where he's, changing people's lives down the road. But that was really the springboard, because we had done a couple of these, what we call flash charity campaigns in the past, but they had only raised, $20,000 to $30,000 in a couple of days, which, is kind of silly to even say out loud. But this thing took it to a whole other level. And, you had tens of thousands of people donating $5, $10, $25, leaving these amazing comments of like, this is why I come to this crazy website. It's not because of the memes and the laughs. It's this feel good. We're changing lives. So we took a step back and said, we've got a responsibility to do a little bit more for more people in need. And that's when Chive Charities was created in earnest.
Just such an incredible story. And I think that particular experience from Taylor just really exemplifies the heart of what Chive Charities is, which is, like you said, he had his main needs were covered by the military, right? But there are certain things that weren't. And that's where Chive Charities could step in and fill the gaps. And so for those who might not know, I think we can talk like broadly about support that Chive Charities provides, and then also maybe things that people might not even think of. So if you look at veterans in particular, what do you think are some of the most common requests that Chive Charities hears, or things that veterans most often need support with?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's mental health and it's mobility. A lot of things that aren't covered by the VA, or if they are, it's things that we hear people are waiting, months, if not years, to hear back on. And so, we use our incredible community of donors and our megaphone to tell that story. And it's not fair that you have to wait 12 months to get a service dog, or, a wheelchair that's adaptive, where you can go out and you can hunt outside. So we'll come in and, we do a lot of therapy items. We do a lot of mobility items. In the 12 years of existence that we have, we've helped veterans and military families to the tune of, I believe, a little over $5 million. And, our average grant is $28,000 to those individuals. So it's real impact on these real lives. And it's things that, they truly are life-giving and life-changing, things that other charities. And certainly, we're hearing that, these insurance companies aren't covering them. So, if it's a Marine who suffered a TBI, right, and he's in constant pain, chronic pain is one of the biggest things that can also lead to mental health challenges and completely change someone's personality. A veteran who's just trying to reintegrate into civilian life. And we'll kind of step in and help some alternative therapies and even things like service dogs. They're not cheap to train. So, we'll come in and help train and place a service dog with a partner agency for $10,000, sometimes $15,000, sometimes $20,000, depending on the need. So those are some of the biggest things. And then, we're one of the only charities that you can find around that will purchase an ADA accessible or wheelchair accessible vehicle. And we've purchased over 250 of those. And those, can range anywhere from 48 to 60, $70,000 a pop. So, one of the only charities, if not the only charity, they can say that we've purchased over 250 of those. And some of those are for those veterans and military families to help them get around and, maybe even get to a soccer game for, the first time in 2-3 years since they've been back from Afghanistan. And like I said, life-changing aid. And those are just, a few. We've got hundreds of different items and therapies and things like that we've helped veterans and military families with.
Oh, it's so incredible. I want to get into some of your favorite stories and some of those alternative things too. Maybe some of those like nuanced items or things people might not even think about.
Yeah.
But I think just talking about the ADA vehicles, especially because I think this is something that the general public might not be aware of, or unless you know somebody who's experienced, a tragedy or has a medical condition, you don't realize that if you lose your ability to be independently mobile, right? So you're
Yeah.
requiring the use of a wheelchair, even if it's manual and it can fold up, or it's an electric wheelchair, it's really heavy. They're like 400, 500, 600 pounds. And that can sometimes completely cut people off in their homes.
Oh, yeah.
And I know a lot of the people, Brian, that we've talked to at Tribe Charities, they rely on medical transport, and that is their only outlet to the outside world. So unless they can roll out onto a back patio or porch or maybe through their neighborhood, if they're lucky enough to have
Mhm.
sidewalks that are accessible, that don't have cracks, that don't have rough terrain, they're sometimes completely stuck at home. And
Yep.
I think that's what those vehicles, what they do is beyond just what we think about of transportation or how it might be a little easier to get in and out.
Yeah.
There's people that have to break wheelchairs down, standing outside in frigid cold temperatures or rain or whatever, just to get their loved one to a doctor's appointment. So
Yeah.
it's really, truly changes every aspect of their lives in ways that you wouldn't even think of when you think of just a vehicle.
Yeah. And some of these things aren't really that expensive, but you're talking about families that don't have 5, 6, $10,000 just laying around. And so it may not even be a wheelchair accessible van. It's a veteran who's got a truck, but they need a wheelchair lift, $5,000, or a veteran that can no longer operate the vehicle. But if we gave them hand controls because they're now, in a wheelchair, like that would completely change their life, and they can transport their family, they can transport themselves. So it's these little things that you take a step back and it's like, why isn't this thing covered? This would absolutely change not only this veteran, his life, but this entire family, and set them on such a more positive trajectory and create those ripple effects that we were just talking about. And so it's easy for us to come in and use our army of do-gooders and make some real impact on these lives. And you look back and we've helped over 700 families, and it's kind of crazy to just look at the impact and the stories and the comments that we get from the family, and then also from those people that said that they were in a dark place at some point and now they've kind of seen the light, and they're going on and helping others the way that we help them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really special. And I think too, one of the things that Mission Roll Call really focuses on is underserved veterans,
Yep.
and then access and quality of healthcare. And so, like underserved meaning like minority or rural vets. So beyond even just some of those like most common items, I think there's also this misconception that everybody has the same access to care, and that everyone's, needs are met if they have a need. So if you've
Mhm.
served in the military, you've, signed this blank check, you've sacrificed, you're taken care of all the way to the end. And most of the time they are taken care of, but there's always these little things that fall through the cracks. And I think that's something really special about Chive Charities too, that I want to hear your opinion on, is some of those things that, might be outside the box, or outside the norm, that Chive Charities has said, listen, maybe the VA has told you hyperbaric oxygen chambers, you don't need them, but you personally had really great experience with that. And so we're going to help take care of that. What are maybe some of those things and areas where you've helped some of these underserved categories?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you mentioned, some of these things are new to us when they get requested. We've got this incredible programs team that works with our recipients, our applicants. They work with these military families, and they talk to these doctors because there's always this need. And in some cases, you've got veterans that have exhausted every other thing within their power. Uh, all of the medicines, and they've done some holistic things and they don't work. And so a lot of times when it gets to us, it's like, you're our last hope. Some of those things like hyperbaric oxygen chambers, infrared saunas, electric bicycles, PMF mats, even something as simple as, we had a veteran from Louisiana, and he didn't have any air conditioning. And in the summer, that's just not going to work in the bayou. So, I don't know if you consider that alternative, but like, that completely changes his life when we go in and install some simple air conditioning into his house. Like, that changes his life. But yeah, like these alternative therapies, they can really make a significant change, improve moods, reintegrate people into society. That, for example, a PMF mat that costs $1,200 kind of works with the neurons in people's brains and releases endorphins, which can completely change your mood. And like I said, some of these veterans are depressed, and their character and their personality has changed since they've come back due to what they've experienced. And if there's something that can tip those scales and improve their average mood, we're not going to balk at it. $1,200, that's a small price to pay to change someone's lives. And some of the feedback that we get is like, wow, this has completely changed everything for me. And we'll spend up to $50,000-$70,000 on one recipient to change that life. And so, yeah, we've seen some really, really good and positive outcomes based on very simple things that, you would think are covered, because even though they're considered alternate therapies and items, they have proven outcomes at this point.
Exactly. And like you said, however we define like alternate, that word can be like so broadly applied. That's even been things like electric bikes. So
Mhm.
somebody who might not have the mobility, to be able to pedal on their own, but who want to be out with their family, those things make a difference. And those are things the insurance isn't going to cover, right? That's like an
Yeah,
extra, but that can make a big difference if you're struggling with your physical and mental health and you just want to feel like yourself for a little bit.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you feel like, Brian, you have any stories that stand out? I know Ira, for instance, is one
Mm.
that I'm very familiar with through Tribe Charities, but do you have any others from, he's first responder more, but any veterans or military families outside of Taylor Morris, that
Oh
have
gosh.
been stuck with you? I know I put you on the spot, right?
No, no. I mean, there's several. Some so like I said, we've helped hundreds at this point, but one that's more recent, Adam, who was or is a 20-year combat Air Force veteran. Um, it's his story has a lot of the same things that you read from a lot of these veteran stories, where they served several terms overseas, and one they don't one small injury here or there doesn't change their entire life. One experience, we certainly know that seeing certain things can change everything. But I think for a lot of our veterans that we help is an accumulation of everything that they experience. They have one fall here, they some shrapnel there, seeing the horrific things that they see, and all of that stuff combined, they come back. And I think Adam was one of those people. He developed a sleeping disorder where he just wasn't able to get to REM sleep and have dreams and get that deep sleep, restorative sleep that really is, it's needed to live a normal life and to be yourself. And so he's got a family. Again, his personality was changing. He was irritable, depressed. And they came in asking for a massage chair. Again, something very, very simple. We got that to him, and it was kind of funny that within the first 15 minutes, his wife got back to us and let us know, like, Adam was snoring. I checked on him after 5 minutes and had the best sleep he's had in years. And that was like 15 minutes of having this $4,000 massage chair. And that changed his life. He's able to sleep. He's able to be a better father, a better husband. And so just kind of like hearing the gratefulness in her voice, like 15 minutes into having this new item. And we hear that a lot with, the veterans and the families that we have. And even from the sons and daughters of, the veterans, like, my dad's a better father,
Mhm.
so it's really rewarding to kind of hear those stories and get that feedback that, we're not just buying an item. It's something that's having a legacy and it's changing lives beyond what we even know.
Oh, it's so cool. And I think something you mentioned early on with Tribe Charities Cause categories too is nonprofits.
Yeah.
And I know whether that's direct support that you've given through grants or just awareness, that all makes a huge difference. And that's then again, like Mission Roll Call, we're really adamant about that, about helping to tell more about these veteran service organizations and support organizations. But I think, have you seen too that as you're trying to reach some of these underserved areas, especially for vets who live in more rural parts of the US, that getting in with nonprofits has been a good way to connect with them too? Or are there some nonprofits that Tribe Charities has worked with for veterans specifically that you've felt really have a good impact?
Yeah, absolutely. We rely on a lot of our veteran nonprofits. We've helped several dozen nonprofits in the past with grants, and it's a good way to impact a large amount of veterans and military families without having to do all the vetting ourselves. And so a lot of times we'll hear from some of our partners, and they do incredible impact in what they do. But just like Child Charities, we can't do everything. So where they maybe fall short in something, they can kind of send over their veterans to us, and then we can kind of pick up where they left off. And so, we rely on them to send us people that are most in need from areas that particularly don't maybe have, for example, good internet connection. And sometimes we'll have advocates from other nonprofits fill out an application for a veteran, or really send them our way and say, hey, here's this information. They sent, these forms to us. We're just going to share those with their blessing with you. And like that veteran I was talking about from Louisiana who doesn't have a computer or even a phone where he can like log in and fill this stuff out, they can help get the people that need it most to us. And we're so grateful for, people like the Boot Campaign, and there's several dozen. We Defy. Yeah, we've been so fortunate to have great nonprofit partners.
That's what I was gonna say. I just saw that story from We Defy in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Like some of the things you might not think about, and there's been others like Warrior Bonfire and like equine therapy programs. And the cool part about that is we've seen a lot from veterans and military families that sense of community and finding their tribe, especially post service, can be really difficult. And so getting connected not just for the things they need, which Tribe Charities does so well, but also with, and I should also mention, once they're part of the Tribe Charities family, they're in. which is another great thing. Is there's a lot of updates. There's that connection doesn't stop just because they received a grant. But I think the other cool part is these organizations too that support veterans who can maybe keep them closely connected and tied into their communities more locally too.
Absolutely. And yeah, we love to, like I said, we make these heroes, again, the hero of their own story, which, we've got an amazing storyteller and story writer in Britt Myers, who writes some of our stories. And so we not only give them that, but and shine a light on just kind of like the greater cause, uh, but also we connect them with our community. And we've got several cities that have these independent chapters that the backbone of that community is the goodwill that we do at Chive Charities. So whether that's, Oklahoma, whether that's Colorado Springs, you've got several hundred people that are just looking to help more people in their area. And a lot of times, we will write a story for a veteran or a military family who's maybe even moving to Colorado Springs and hit up Yvette or Yvonne out there and say, hey, you know what? We've got somebody headed your way. And they automatically got a great community to tap into. And I think that's important because, some of these veterans are trying to go at it alone. And that's where some of the mental health issues are from. So if we can tap them into that community and just give them that hug, that support that they need, then, they're set up for success.
For sure. Yeah, I sort of skirted over the fact that I write a lot of these stories. But
I didn't know if you wanted me you do an incredible job.
oh, thank you. I just think the organization is so incredible and so impactful, and I'm just a small piece of that. But I think if people are watching this and listening to this and they're thinking, man, like I've had this need that I just I just can't afford it, and I wouldn't go to insurance because they would never cover something like this. How can they get involved, and like how does that process work? Obviously, storytelling is a big part of that,
Yeah.
and really the main foundation of what Child Charities does. But how do people apply, and kind of walk us through like what that looks like? Because there are so many nuanced things that Child Charities covers. There are probably still things that you don't,
Yeah.
and just kind of tell us about what that looks like on the back end.
Yeah, so we have an online application. We've recently, within the past year or so, updated that to make it a little bit more accessible to people. In the early years, we wanted a snail mail application. We didn't want people going online and wholesale applying for charity at a million different charities and just like not even knowing who we are. We realized, that's not the best use of our time because we have to, file all these papers. So we created an online application, and now we've updated that to be mobile friendly, which I think is actually great because, to your point, like reaching the most impoverished and the people with the greatest needs, we can't just assume that people have access to a computer to upload doctors' files and things like that. And, asking someone to go to a library and bring up, a drive and get all of this stuff. Like a lot of the families we work with, they, like you had mentioned, rely on medical transportation. In some cases, they have to rely on ambulances and fire departments to transport them to weekly appointments, which isn't sustainable. It's very expensive, and it's not how people should have to live. So, getting the most mobile friendly, the easiest way, but at the same time, making sure that we're checking the boxes. It's an objective kind of process for us. So we're looking at certain things like what is income level, what is support from the community that they have. So have they fundraised? What types of items or money have they already received? What are they asking for? Somebody that's coming in and asking for a new house for $300,000 versus somebody who's asking for a wheelchair for $8,000. One is going to take precedence over the other because one's a little bit more attainable. What does their network look like? Are they able to, have a network of support? Are they single parent versus, so there's a lot of different objective variables that we look at, but a recipient, whether that's, first responder, veteran, military family, or rare medical individual, will fill out the application. Sometimes that may take a couple of weeks to maybe even a couple of months to we'll always respond and let you know that, we've received this. And then we kind of filter all of that stuff. We, within, 3 to 5 months, will let you know whether you're accepted or not. And every quarter we have just this selection committee where, unfortunately, we have 50 to 60 worthy individuals. By the time they make it to that stage, they're all very worthy. And we could say yes and feel great about helping every single one of those 50 to 60 people. Unfortunately, we can only help 16, 18, 20 on a good quarter of those people. We'll help about 1 to 2 recipients a week. And so, we kind of have a selection process where we have to say no, unfortunately, to half of those people or more than half. And then we do get to say yes to several families. And that's the best part. So we'll let them know that, hey, help is on the way. And over the course of the next 3 to 4 months, we'll be gathering information about their story. It's not, it's not a prerequisite that we have to write a story for you. Some of these stories, there's just some trauma and there's some stuff that our individuals have experienced that just doesn't translate well, or certain things that individuals don't want out there because of employment and employers and family and friends. So we're totally sensitive to that, but we do use our megaphone to help shine a spotlight on the greater cause. And that's part of what we do. So, that's kind of the full from conception and filling out the need and the application to releasing the story to, welcoming them in open arms with our community. The whole process could take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, sometimes even longer at this point. So it's not like the support of we need this tomorrow, red alarm, or else. We don't do well with they need this thing at this point. We've done some of that in the past, but it's more high impact, long term. How do we set people up for success? And writing these stories that change not only their lives, but have that ripple effect like we talked about.
Yeah, it's so awesome. And I think that's where the storytelling and veterans doing what veterans do best, which is looking out for each other, really come together in this awesome marriage. In that we've had, and Tribe Charities has had so many recipients who got an item or something that they really needed, told another veteran about it, and then that veteran came qualified, went through the application process, and received a similar thing. And so that ripple effect is really important because, one, like we said, there's some veterans who are just not in areas where they're hearing about the resources or support available to them, or they didn't know that it was something that could have such a positive effect on their life. And I think the other thing I wanted to get your perspective on is the grant amounts really vary. So we talked about like kind of those big ticket items, which are, the ADA vehicles, service dogs to some extent, or medical supplies. And so tell me a little bit more about that too, about that, what's that gamut look like in terms of grant support?
Yeah, we try to get a good mix because our budget can only go so far. And, one of the sayings that we've had since day one is we just want to make the world 10% happier. And it's kind of this funny way of looking at impact, right? Like, what does 10% mean? Who knows? But like, you can look at that and say, 10%, does that mean we're making this recipient's life 10% happier? In some cases, a $500 grant, $500 worth of supplements, like you said, or even incontinence underwear for a veteran who's, needs them. That makes their lives 100% better. So it's this cheeky way of, 10% better, but, it doesn't matter the item, it's the impact that you see. So yeah, some of them are $50,000 vans or $15,000 hyperbaric oxygen chambers, but those supplements or 3 weeks of therapy for a veteran and their family to get to know each other again, like that can make all the difference in the world. And then you've got, people that are reading these stories. And like you said, I remember, I think the first hyperbaric oxygen chamber that we purchased was for a veteran named Shelly. And she randomly saw another veteran who was experiencing some of the same chronic pain that she was, and told them about Tribe Charities, and never spoke to Shelly again. But, he remembered her and was like, I'm so grateful that she told me about you guys. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known about you. So it's like that ripple effect. And yeah, we hear that a lot of times, with a lot of our recipients. It's, that $500 worth of supplements. And then we get an influx of people that are like, I need that too. So, a little bit can go a long way.
For sure. And I think there's a crossover between the cause categories too. And something that, Tribe Charities did was pay attention to what people are asking for and being able to kind of pivot. So originally it was just veterans, and then became more military families, even some active duty military, which is something that can be challenging with those 45,000 VSOs I was talking about. Is that sometimes you have to be a combat veteran in order to qualify. You have to be active duty. You have to be just a veteran. And so I think it's really great that you've been able to fill in those gaps across so many different areas. And we at Mission Roll Call have a similar person that we've helped, which is Austin Carrig.
Yeah.
And Austin's a great example because she's in an active duty military family, and they have a daughter with a rare medical condition.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there's families that come that just check so many boxes. And the good part about that is that there's more support that we can provide. And the other part is there's more people to raise awareness, and for them to spread that message too. So beyond just their military circle, there's also the rare disease community. And I think it's awesome that people share those stories and really what that storytelling can do, both to bring in people and to just show them that they're not alone. And that's the part I wanted to mention, Brian, was the community. So the Tribe Nation community, because a lot of things happen too beyond the grant funding. So I'd love to hear more about that. So like once, those decisions are made, those really tough calls, and the next, round of grant recipients are selected. Like I said, it doesn't end there in terms of their support from Tribe Charities, keeping updated, checking in on them, but also the community gets involved. And so if anyone's listening to this that might be near a chapter, or who might want to get involved beyond a monetary donation, tell us a little bit about how that community works and what they've done in the past.
Yeah. So, like I said, we've got the most supportive, loyal community, and the Chibers, as we call them, our Tribe Charities donors, obviously make up the lifeblood of what we do. But, that incredible community is not only supporting us monetarily, but they're kind of the boots on the ground for us. You've got several 100,000 fans of the website around the world that, at the drop of a hat, if we've got a military family that needs to build a fence, for example, we can save some money by having them come in and some good old fashioned sweat equity, help tear down a shed or build something. And they've done that several times for us. And not only that, they're the ones that are sharing these stories. They're meeting with these families. We've got military followers and donors that reach out to us. It's like, hey, I just read that story of Austin, or I read that story of Timothy. I actually am also from that same town, or I've got family there, or, can I get his phone number? I'd love to connect with him. I also served in the Air Force. So it's, that community that goes above and beyond. Yes, the donations are amazing, but it's the above and beyond that really sets them apart.
Yeah, and sometimes that comes through the grant recipients too. Like we had mentioned with the nonprofits, like Team Rubicon is another one that Mission Roll Call has a great partnership with, and they were a grant recipient of Tribe Charities before, and another great avenue again to get people connected and involved, whether that's through Tribe Charities or through some of these other organizations that get support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Why do you think there is, this is a little bit of a curveball, but why do you think there is so much need amongst veteran and military families? And do you think there's other ways for us to address that? Or is it just always going to be, you're going to need organizations and people that can step in to fill gaps, so there are always going to be gaps?
I don't know. I think part of it starts with the fact that, the military mindset. is you're a helper. You know, they are drilled, literally drilled into their heads. Well, I guess not literally, but they, uh,
Hope
they,
not.
yeah, they've got this mentality that like suck it up, help others. That's what you're programmed to do. So some of the last people to ask for help when they really need it are these veterans and military families. And especially in the early days, and I think maybe there's a little bit of a shift as the narrative is gotten out there, but a lot of the applications would be initiated not by the veterans themselves, but by wives, by sons and daughters, by friends of these veterans in need that saw this need. And so, you know, when you can't speak up for yourself, who is going to speak up for you? And we try to do that. I know other charities have tried to do that. There's been some good movement, I think, with creating awareness for the need, but maybe uh, the care hasn't caught up to the demand, obviously. And so, you know, that's, you know, there's where the gap lies. And what will it take? You know, I think it's just telling those stories, getting it out there, in you know, telling those stories so veterans themselves read them and make them aware that like it's okay. It's okay to ask for help. And then also, you know, in some cases, educating them and letting them know that like there are some of these alternative therapies out there, and there's institutions and charities that will cover some of these things. So any bit of, you know, exposure that we can get to that community and exposure that we can do for them, and for the cause, I think helps.
For sure. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like traditionally, not a group that's used to asking for help. They're used to being the helpers.
Yeah.
And so it can be difficult to say, you know, I think I've earned this. I think I deserve to have this support or this help that I need. And being able to share those stories and raise awareness hopefully helps people to be able to see, like, you know, that's something I could benefit from too. And it's time I ask for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, you know, like we even hear from some of our veterans that have read some of the stories. It's like, you know, I never thought, I knew that I was struggling in a couple of areas, but I read that story and like this tough guy that served 8 tours. And, you know, like if he's asking for help, I feel comfortable and I feel safe asking for help. And that's what you want to hear. You know that there's a shift, and something positive is happening. And we can continue that narrative and you know, create that 10% change, you know, we'll slowly change the world.
I have a good example for that one too, and that would be Jeremy Jansen's story. He's one that you know, served in the Marines. He actually served with his cousin in the same unit, and they were involved in an incident while he was deployed. And when you look at the video or even the photos of what their vehicle looked like before and after this accident, or I guess it wasn't an accident, more an attack. Um, I mean, it's unrecognizable. It's just charred metal. And
Like somebody survived that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and he, you know, survived it. And unfortunately, several other members did not, and some were really like catastrophically wounded. And I thought what was cool about Jeremy, if cool is the word to attach to it, is that he very much like Taylor Morris had a lot of those needs met, right? So
Mhm.
his wounds were taken care of. He had a really great income. Like everything seemed like it was good. And then once he retired, he still had, you know, pretty similar level of support. He had a great job, but he lived in Hawaii,
Yeah.
and he just, you know, realized he needed a service animal, and he pursued that route. But getting from Hawaii to his service animal was cost prohibitive. And that was an area where tribe charities could come in and cover that travel cost for him to get the dog. And I think that's another thing that it
Yeah.
just, that example of, you think everything's taken care of, you've got your service animal, you're matched, you've paid for it or fundraised for it, you've had everything else taken care of, but you don't have thousands of dollars to fly to get it, and how that could be the one barrier to this tool that could really help you with your mental health, your physical health, so many other aspects of your life. And so being able to, and he was a big chiver. So
Yeah.
being familiar and reading those stories and seeing other people ask for help, and even him having this really terrible, tragic experience, he felt like he didn't deserve to ask. And it took a while for him to read some of these other stories and see the vulnerabilities and to say like, okay, like I think it's time for me to get the help I need to.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. Like sometimes we do get veterans that apply for themselves, and there's always this disclaimer. And a lot of these applications, like, I'm asking for this, but if there's someone else that needs it more, then don't worry. Like, and we've even it's happened in the past where we've let a veteran know that yes, you're accepted, and they're like, "Are you sure?" Use that for someone else if they're more in need. It's like, no, no, no. Switch your mindset. Come on. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
You're getting the help you need, like it or not.
yeah.
I want to give you a chance to brag and tell us about some of like the broad impact numbers. You mentioned 5 million to veterans in support, direct support, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But give us like the high level view of what Chive Charities has done since 2012.
Since 2012, so we've done a little over $22 million in total aid. We've helped over 700 individuals. And even though it's 700 causes, we kind of like to look at it like each cause obviously has a ripple effect. So those 700 causes that we've helped, I would say is closer to, 1,500 to 2,000 individuals, because a family like Adam Botcher's, it's not just Adam. It's, his two kids and his wife. A nonprofit that we've helped, like Boot Campaign, this support that we gave them, or We Defy, how many veterans are coming in and getting, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu lessons and reconnecting. So each one of those grants touches multiple lives. And like we said, that ripple effect. So I like to say on the low end, we've maybe helped 1,500 to 2,000 individuals, but, maybe it's in the millions with, because the megaphone that we have, it's not just you're changing the lives of the recipients, but what we really want to do is inspire others. And so, your Joe Chiver, your Nicole Smith that's reading this story, maybe that's going to make her day a little bit better, and she's going to tell someone about Chive Charities, and maybe she knows a veteran that needs help. And so, yeah, that ripple effect that we talk about. And we're not stopping here. I hope that we're just getting started. So maybe the next time we talk, we're saying, we've helped 10,000 people and we've done $50 million worth of aid. And I'm just incredibly grateful for, organizations like Mission Roll Call as well, for spotlighting and doing what you guys are doing, spotlighting the need and telling the story. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for all you're doing to support veterans and military families, and especially, like we said, those who might be underserved or who are in rural areas or minorities, and just being able to have the same access and quality of care. So if anyone's listening to this, if there's a veteran or military family or somebody with a rare medical diagnosis, what can they do to get involved or to see if they might be able to qualify for some help?
Yeah, so Chive Charities, we've got a website, chivecharities.org. And within there, we've got a recipients page, we've got an about page, frequently asked questions. So, am I eligible? You can go check out there. We've got a whole list of eligibility requirements. We've got a contact page. So if you have any questions, our incredible programs team can reach out and get you more information. On the other side of things, if you know organizations that could benefit from sending some of their individuals that they help, whether it be first responders, rare medical individuals, veterans, military families, you can send them our way. If you want to get involved with, actively supporting Chive Charities, obviously, we'll take any support, whether that's boots on the ground, whether that's a monthly donation. We've got about 3,000 monthly donors who are the lifeblood for what we do. It all kind of starts there, and then we kind of filter that out and help the individuals that we help. So, a lot of different options. And even if it's just sharing a story, sharing this podcast and getting the word out there, that does more than you even know. So just really appreciative of you guys and everything that you do, and the people listening here. Thanks for listening. What are we, 40 minutes in or so?
Yeah, we did good.
Yeah.
A little more. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brian. We just appreciate having you on. And 22 million today. Who knows what tomorrow can bring? But Just so appreciative for all the work you're doing for veterans and military families and beyond, but for especially those who've done so much for us. So thank you for joining us. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. And for more on both Chive Charities or Mission Roll Call, you can visit our websites, chivecharities.org or missionrollcall.org.
Thanks, everybody.